everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to Spooky Mountain. You've got Steph and you have Jordi here, and we're very excited to bring you a brand new episode this week.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us again.
Hi. What do you have for your story this week?
I have something that you definitely know about. Yeah. I think we talked about it recently, but it's okay. I want to say local, but it's not really local. It's New South Wales. It's a spooky one, as in like ghosty, paranormal, / a bit of true crime, but mainly paranormal.
Okay. I feel like it's usually me saying to you, you definitely know this one.
No, you 100% know about this.
Just
possibly even...
Oh, awesome.
I mean, technically more than me, even though I've done the... You'll know what I mean when I say it, but
Okay. I'm so curious to know what this is.
It's going to be really fun. What about your one?
So there is a huge chance that you also know this one because it's a UFO story. I don't know how well known it is. I think to like UFO enthusiasts and people like that, it is probably quite a well-known case. But I hadn't heard of it until I kind of like dived into it.
Sweet.
And, started researching it. But it's a very, very good story.
Awesome. Okay.
I love
cool
UFO story.
Yeah.
I know. And I think it's been a while since I've done UFO. It's hard to decide.
It really is. Like, I've got the largest list of UFO stories.
I bet you fucking do.
It's...
This might be on your list. Maybe.
Or maybe
it's
not.
a big one. It's a big one.
Okay. I mean, there's some that I haven't even added on there because I'm like, I'll add it later.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm interested to know what you're doing. So if you want to support us or support the podcast, we do have a Patreon which you can subscribe to. We've got exclusive videos. We've got heaps of posts on there as well. We also have a private Discord group or channel, which has got about 12 people on there now, I think.
Yeah, 12 or 13.
Yeah. So that's really fun over there. We use that to kind of chat with everyone, and it's really fun. You get to share images and, talk about a lot of shit. So we asked your suggestions for things too. So, that's a really cool benefit we have with Patreon. But otherwise, if you'd just like to leave us a review or rating, that helps us a lot. And lots of new people get to see our show.
Yeah, it really does help. It somehow works with like the podcasting algorithm that the podcasts that have a higher number of reviews also with rating, like high ratings, get seen easier. So that helps us a lot. And if you would like to follow what we do or even reach out to us, we are mainly active on Instagram and Facebook, but mainly Instagram. We post like all sorts of photos. We post our like social episode photos for each episode that we do, like the relevant photos. And yes, we also have a website, and that's spookymountainpodcast.com. I think that is, spookymountainpodcast.com. And on our website, you can actually leave us what's called a speak pipe message. And this is like a voice message, maximum 60 seconds. And if you like, we will play it on the podcast. But other than that, you can just send us an email, say hi, tell us your own spooky story, UFO story, cryptid story. We don't
Even
care.
If it's super funny,
reach out to us.
Just anything you want.
Yeah. Anything at all. We love getting emails from people, and we love getting messages from people. So make sure to do that if you have something to say.
So that's at spookymountainpodcast@gmail.com. So please send us anything you got. we'd love to hear from you. And
Yes.
we have a new Patreon. I keep saying Patreon, and when I meant to say new patron.
Oh, it's patron.
For fuck's sake.
Steph.
You know, I literally catch myself on it every time. And I'm
patron.
like, I am literally triggering myself every time because it's horrible. But Ailey is one of our wonderful friends.
Long-time friend of the show.
And she also has a really amazing Instagram. She's an illustrator. She does awesome fucking shit.
Yes.
So check her out. Ailey Banks.
Yep.
That's her on Instagram. But we really appreciate you signing up to our Patreon.
Yeah, thanks, Ailey. It helps us be
she bought
supported
a couple of our
very much.
Demon Lady shirts too.
Oh,
so.
Yeah. We have merch, which some of our merch doesn't quite make sense, even though it does. But yeah, it has a really cool logo on it and stuff like that. So yeah, thanks, Ailey. Thanks for supporting us.
And so I thought I'd tell you something kind of funny that came to my mind the other day.
Oh, yes. Yay. It's usually me being like, guess what happened to me? I'm glad that you're telling me something.
My mum always talks about this story. Because, like, as we all know, I love UFO stuff. Like, my mum and my sisters are very aware of this as well. But we don't really, like, none of us have had any UFO encounters or anything like that. But one time, my mum says that your dad used to have a very strange friend.
Okay.
But the thing is, it's kind of funny because, like, she really doesn't like, pot smokers. She thinks that if you smoke pot, you might be a little crazy, which
You're a delinquent if you...
which I've told her many times, Mum. Like, what does that make me? Like, I don't do it anymore, but like, you'd be surprised how many people smoke pot and are completely normal and okay.
Oh,
but she was like, oh, he's a little bit strange. I think he, smoked the freaky.
Smokes a bit too much of the devil's lettuce.
That's the one. And she was like, yeah, one time he came over. He's like, you girls were quite young. But yeah, he said that he was at a barbecue with some friends. They were outside in the backyard. It was like in the middle of the day. Everyone was cooking. And he said that he looked up and there was a UFO hovering over the whole party. And he looked down and every single person in the party was completely frozen, including himself. But he could move his eyes and look around the party, and it was just like everything went completely still. All sound was completely silent. And it was like that. He said it felt like a few minutes, and then everything just continued like normal. Oh, my God.
That's so hectic. So it's almost like a UFO/time event almost, but maybe he was just frozen, so not so much like the time
I think
event.
they can stop. It sounds like they can kind of stop and slow down time. Like usually with that stuff, like, a beam will come down, like take someone and they're just like, oh, just pause everything for a second and they don't know what's actually going on.
That's so... How terrified would you be?
And he's like,
if he
felt like he was losing it because he was looking around and everyone was just gone back to normal and he's like, did I really just fucking see that? And no one else knew. But for some reason he could still...
Okay.
Yeah, he can move his eyes but his body was frozen.
Take in what was happening. But obviously everyone else just, when they froze, their minds froze as
weird
well.
That, and you do hear stuff like that where people are still quite active in are taking in what's happening around them. But I love that story so much. It's so fucking cool. But I want to find out more because obviously you don't talk. Like I'm not really that close with any of my other relatives. But it's always something I just want to ask everyone that sort of stuff. Like, have you ever seen anything or even know of anyone that's had an encounter like that? Because it's such a it's quite removed that story from our family. Like it's just like a guy that my dad knew. Like
it's always really fun to kind of also hear these stories from people. Like he obviously sounds like he was a quite an interesting person anyway, but it's always really fun to hear these types of things from people who don't seem like these stories would come from, if you know what I mean. People who aren't strange,
I mean, I don't really know
quirky,
I don't know. Maybe I did know who those. My dad always had some weird friends. I remember we had this other guy coming around, which is not spooky related. It was just weird. He stayed with us a few nights, but every morning Dad would be like, okay, now just don't say anything, but he has an addiction to tomato sauce, like ketchup. And he would literally have Wheat Bix in the morning with tomato sauce on the Wheat Bix. So like milk, like cereal with tomato, everything he had to have tomato sauce on it. And I just remember having breakfast and Dad was just like staring at us like, keep your mouths shut and just enjoy your
how
breakfast.
could you keep your mouth
being like
shut?
6 years old. And I remember this. Like,
I wonder what else he would use tomato sauce on. I wonder if he put it in his coffee.
Maybe.
Probably.
I mean, it's such a... I love tomato sauce, but that is messed up. Milk.
That is so
like cereal. Oh, that's the worst thing.
Nah,
I actually don't think there's anything worse than that.
That's too far.
I don't think there's anything worse than that.
Have you ever watched the show My Strange Addiction?
Oh, I love that shit.
That's so good.
Oh.
Have you seen the one with the lady that she was addicted to her own pee?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, she would drink it and she would like have a bath in it.
What?
But you know what? There's like a whole following of people who claim that your pee has like curative properties. So they use it for all sorts of things like rashes and infections, and obviously it is bullshit.
Yeah, because it's waste. Like it's waste. It's like like poo. It's like all the stuff that your body takes all the good stuff out and then just gets rid of
the bad
sawdust. It's got there's nothing in it. Like
people like rinse their mouths with it.
Fuck that.
Rinse their eyes out with it. Put it in their hair.
I know. I always try to like justify some of it. I remember the ones that really stick out is a woman that would always eat the stuffing from inside her couch. And even when she'd go to her friends' houses and she'd be like, I have to like sneak the stuff, like try to make sure they don't know I'm eating their couch. And I'm like,
how is this addictive? How the fuck do you get addicted to that?
Like they just love the texture. And then the woman who ate rocks and she would drive to this certain highway to get those rocks.
There was one person who was addicted to drinking gas, like gasoline, like petrol.
Fuck's sake.
That is so fucked. That
drinking it. It's not even sniffing it.
No.
Whoa.
It was drinking. Yeah, that would shut down your organs, surely. Like that would kill you.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, I'm not a professional.
We should check in on this person and make sure they're all right. Yeah. That's insane. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we need to watch that show again.
We digressed a little. I'm super excited to hear about your story. I have a slight idea that I know what it is, but maybe we should get into it.
We did talk about this a couple of weeks ago. I'm pretty certain we did, unless it's something in my head. But it's definitely something you know about. For our listeners, though, I highly doubt you have heard about this unless you are a local to the northern beaches of Sydney. Even so, maybe you have no idea. So this is a very creepy and spooky place, and it's known as the most haunted road in Australia, the Wakehurst Parkway.
Oh, yeah. How exciting. I don't remember talking about this with you. We probably did.
I swear
we probably did.
Because you've driven on this road before, haven't you?
I don't think so.
Oh, my God, I've made up a whole fucking story in my head.
We had a conversation. I mean, maybe.
You said you've driven on it, and you were like, okay.
I possibly actually have, but I haven't. I'm not aware of if I have. Okay. Yeah, that's so funny.
That is very funny.
No, definitely didn't. I don't think we spoke about it.
Okay, but you do know the Wakehurst Parkway.
I do know.
Cool,
yeah,
cool. All right. Well, that is hilarious. So yeah, usually with creepy roads, you're probably thinking that they're like made out of dirt or gravel, really far away from any town or city. This, however, is in the northern beaches, and it's quite close to Sydney, and it's actually one of their main roads. It's 15.5 kilometres long, which is 9 miles, and it's all paved. The whole road is completely paved. It starts at Seaforth and winds its way north to Narrabeen, passing through the Garigal National Park. Majority of this road is surrounded by large gum trees, native bushes, and sandstone walls that were carved to make way for the road.
Mm-hmm.
So the road is pretty damn creepy if you are driving down it at night. I wouldn't say too much in the day, but you are quite isolated when you're actually going through the national park.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The road has had a lot of fatal crashes and has a really dark history with murdered victims being dumped along the sidelines.
Oh, yuck.
Most of the locals that drive on this road are aware of what horrible things have happened on this road, but even though they may be skeptical of the paranormal, they can admit that they do get a very eerie feeling while driving alone.
Mm-hmm.
So tonight I will be discussing a few of the murders that happened to kind of paint a picture. So yes, we will start on a bit of true crime, but it will get into the scary, spooky ghost stuff.
Yes, we love a true crime paranormal crossover.
Yes. So the first one is, I do think it's the saddest one, as it does involve an 8-year-old boy named Graham Thorne.
Oh, Graham.
So in 1960, the Sydney Opera House was still being built and was proving to be a little bit more expensive than they thought it would be. So the New South Wales government had started some lotteries for the public to raise money for the construction.
Mm-hmm.
The first prize was for £100,000, which is equivalent today to $3.1 million.
Hang on, I thought they needed more money. I thought they needed.
So the amount of people, it was
money.
like a ticketed thing. So heaps of people would go into. So
right, okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of people must have entered in.
Yeah,
who knows?
So it must have like balanced out
somehow
for the amount that they were getting compared to the fucking huge prize
which
money
is insane to think
away.
about. Like 3.1 million is that's a lot of money to win.
That's like the Powerball.
That's Powerball money. So, I mean, why am I telling you this? Well, Graham's parents actually won this money.
Oh, nice.
Yes. And during that time, it was plastered all over the newspapers. Pictures, names, and private details of the winners.
Uh-oh, I see where this is going.
So unfortunately, the wrong person had seen this and decided they wanted in on some of the money. So one morning when Graham was waiting for a ride from a friend to school, he was taken by someone.
Oh.
The person called the parents later that morning saying, "I have your boy. I want £25,000 before 5 o'clock this afternoon. I'm not fooling. If I don't get the money before 5 o'clock, I'll feed the boy to the sharks."
Oh my fucking God, that's horrible.
So fucked up. So, of course, the police did get involved and they tried to trace the calls, but they couldn't do anything. So the following day, they put it all on the news. They put up an official reward. Still nothing. A few days later, the boy's school cap and backpack were sprawled out along the Wakehurst Parkway.
Oh my God, that is so heartbreaking. Like, of course, anyone can understand how hard that would be as a parent, but as a parent, fuck me. Like,
yeah, it's
couldn't imagine anything worse than that.
It's horrible. All just for money and they wanted to give them the money as well. Yep. But because it was so recent that they won it, they didn't even have the money yet.
Oh, so
there was nothing they could even do.
Them.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, yeah, the Wakehurst Parkway was a bit of a hotspot at that time because all of his belongings were there. However, 6 weeks later, they actually found Graham's body near his school on vacant land, still in his school uniform. It was wrapped in a blanket and just placed inside of a ledge.
Man, some people are fucking evil.
It's so fucked up, yeah. So this murder case was absolutely massive at the time, as you can imagine. And yeah, the Wakehurst Parkway was kind of the place to really kind of pinpoint until they found him.
Okay.
Everyone was all over that place looking for clues.
Yep.
But of course, the murders, they don't stop there. Later in 1995, a woman named Frances Tizone never returned home after university. She was with her ex-partner the night before, returning each other's belongings as they had had a very rocky breakup.
Mm-hmm.
She was the one who broke it off due to John, her boyfriend at the time, being incredibly jealous and violent. Heard this many times before.
Yep.
A few days later, her body was found, partly decomposed in the bush, just a few meters from Wakehurst Parkway.
He couldn't have just let it go.
I know.
Like, it's such a, like...
It was so hard reading that story because, like...
Yeah.
It's so... everyone was just like, he was extremely abusive the whole time, very controlling. Even in her uni, she would be going to uni and he would just go to her classes and sit in the background. And everyone knew who he was and that he wasn't a student. They're like, oh, that's her controlling, crazy boyfriend.
Fucking hell, it's so like scary that someone has such access to another person like that, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, sadly she ended up being killed. But yeah, he was actually found guilty and got sent to prison. Good. So yeah. In 1994, Stephen Dempey was 34 years old when he was killed by a high-powered compound crossbow in Deep Creek Reserve on Wakehurst Parkway. The man who killed him hid him in the creek there overnight, where he would later return to dismember him and then keep the parts in a freezer at his home.
Do you remember, what year was that?
1994.
I think I read about this.
Really?
Like just maybe a year ago or something. I remember reading something very similar. I think it's the same story.
He killed another person as well after this, and he, when I was reading all these, I was like, oh man, like these are all like full on true crime, like they
fucking
are
big murders,
crazy big murders, yeah. So he chopped him up in the creek, took the parts into his freezer at home, kept him in the freezer. Then 4 months later, he disposed of the body in pit water where he was eventually found. But yeah, he was killed and just left at this reserve on Wakehurst Parkway.
Oh, God. Something about thinking of someone just kind of left out in the wilderness is also this added level of like ickiness for me. I'm sure for other people it is as well. But
because anyone can come across that.
Yeah, and just like, I know the person is gone, you know, like a dead person is kind of gone, but just imagining someone out in the dark and cold and the it's a lot.
Yeah, no, I get that. Ugh. So these are the most infamous cases that are known of in the area. But surprisingly, that's not what seems to be really haunting this road. Majority of the locals and witnesses will say that the intersection of Wakehurst and Warringah Road is the scariest part. There have been a large number of crashes here, which are caused by a young girl named Kelly. Witnesses say that she will appear in their car as they drive alone and will make the car veer off the road until they crash.
Oh, shit.
Not good.
No, not good.
Kelly has been seen by many drivers. She's believed to be in her 20s and wears a long dress that has been described as a long white hippie dress or old period clothing. But sometimes she's also described as a nun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Everyone actually calls her Kelly, but no one really knows how it started as well or where it came from. A lot of people have like kind of some very vague ideas, but nothing really solid. But for the last 5 decades, at least, Kelly has been seen on this road. People have claimed to be driving along the road at night when they see her standing along the side of the road. As they pass her, they look back into their mirror and she's now sitting in the back seat of their car.
Oh, fucking hell. This is a legit kind of, I won't say it's a fear, but something that I think about a lot. We like driving on dark Blue Mountains.
Yeah, in the Blue Mountains
roads,
totally.
you know.
I feel like this is a very common fear for a lot of people though. Like, yeah, living out in the bush, or being alone on long drives.
Yes.
This is always something that's going to be in someone's head. Like, the worst thing right now is if a ghost woman appears on the road or someone's appearing in my car.
In the back seat, you look into the rearview mirror and you just see someone fucking staring at you from the back seat. Ooh.
Well, yeah. So they say that, she appears in the car. They say that she's just looking directly at them. Yeah, through that mirror. She's just staring straight at them. And when they turn around, she's gone.
No, God. Yeah. Okay. All right.
So, Mary Lowland. Now, she's a psychic medium who has encountered Kelly on a few occasions as she does live there locally. She says that usually the car radio will start to buzz and the car doors will lock themselves when she drives past the church on the road. The first time I took the road was about 6 years ago. It was about 2 a.m. and I had the feeling of someone touching the back of my neck. It felt like a cool hand would on a cold day. Mary also said, she's like a white veiled apparition of a girl in the back seat.
Oh, God.
The daughter also came across Kelly a few times and thinks that most hauntings are in places where there has been tragedy. I feel Kelly is either lost or has a message to deliver. She's not an evil presence, but one that's traumatized. She is saying, I need a lift out of here.
Right. Okay. So she's not there to do harm.
Yeah.
She just needs a bit of help.
Yeah. So that's an interesting way of looking at it as well.
Looking at it, for sure.
Hla U used to be a cab driver in 2010 and had a terrifying encounter while driving on Wakehurst Parkway. There was a grey silhouette of a thin young woman in the mirror, apparently sitting on the middle of the rear seat and sort of staring straight back at me. She was in a kind of white gown and a headdress like a Christian nun. I couldn't really see her face clearly, just the shape of her face and her deep green eyes. Yes, the sad green eyes. But she was definitely real and sitting there and staring back at me at that precise moment.
Oof, yuck. Especially when you're driving, because you so much of your brain knows that you need to focus on the road as well. But if you're focusing on the road, you know there is something behind you.
Oh, yeah, you instantly have to take
look at
into account you're in a horror movie.
Oh, yeah, and that you're going to just die.
Do I have to, defend myself? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. A terrible situation. I mean, maybe there is two entities. Maybe there's the kind of like hippie.
Yeah, that's been said as well.
And nun.
That it could be the two which is interesting because it's in the same spot. So I don't know.
Yeah, weird.
Hla also claims that one night he was driving a woman he had picked up before and she wanted to be taken to the same spot where he saw the apparition appear. Later on, he actually heard that the woman had actually passed a few weeks before picking her up.
Oh,
so she was a ghost as well.
She was a ghost. This is starting to remind me of the story I did, the Ghosts of Japan tsunami.
Yes.
With all the like ghosts in the taxis and stuff.
I'm pretty sure this is the only taxi driver story I've got, but there are so many taxi drivers that have encounters on this road.
Fuck.
I mean, they're on the road all the time, so I guess that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Very good point.
So other drivers have also seen a woman standing on the side of the road covered in blood, and then they'll pull over to get her in the car. They'll drive her to the hospital, only for her to completely disappear. People claim to feel like their car is simply driving into an eerie twilight zone, and sometimes the windscreen wipers will go crazy along with all the other electricals in the car.
Mm.
A man named PJ recalls a time 15 years ago. A group of us in 2 cars were driving down the parkway about midnight. We veered off into one of the side roads, like a small car park. We got out of one of our cars for some fresh air. There were about 6 of us. No word of a lie. We heard a girl from the bushes start screaming, "Help me! Help me!" I will never forget the look on my mate's face. They went white. We went back into our cars and got out of there as quickly as possible. It was so dark and so quiet at the time then. All of a sudden, I hear that. It was terrifying.
Ooh.
So that one I think is very scary, but at the same time, like, I don't know, like, if I'd probably call the police as well. But
I mean, that's it. It's like there's potentially someone in the bush who needs help.
Yeah.
But also it's a very haunted area.
Extremely haunted area. And then also I was thinking, like, depending, like, when you're younger as well, like, adrenaline is just pumping when you're with your friends. You're probably not even thinking that that's a real person. You're probably just like, that is a fucking demonic ghost.
For sure. Yeah. Another point is that I have heard of delinquents using this tactic as a way to lure you in and then do you harm. So either like rob you or hurt you. Yeah. So people they'll be like either a man and a woman or, you know, just a woman. But usually it's like, you know, a couple of people and the woman will be like, help, help, help.
That's evil.
Yeah, so people nearby will try and find her, and then when they do, they just fucking rob them or
okay, well, I'm going to be a little bit more cautious of that. I need a fucking taser, man, you know.
I know, we all need a fucking taser.
A little taser.
Taser, just a little mini taser. Yeah, exactly. Oh, that would be cute.
Keys.
I wouldn't mind getting one of those.
Oh, my God. And on another night, a mother and daughter who were driving down Wakehurst Parkway at night, they saw something appear in the middle of the road. They quickly swerved, but once they passed it, they saw it first as a bright light, but then they noticed it was a girl. The car swerved over to the curb, and the mother said it felt like she went through it. They described the ghost as hovering because the feet were not touching the ground.
Right.
Susan Hank also remembers a story her friend told her a while ago. In the late 1970s, she explained there was a young girl dressed in white standing on the side of the road near Oxford Falls. She picked her up and gave her a lift to the other end. A long conversation was held, but by the time the car had gotten to Narrabeen, she was completely gone. She only had vision of her in the rearview mirror while underway, but then she disappeared.
Ooh, that's a very solid...
Having a fucking conversation.
A conversation. Because that's just too real.
That's way too real, eh?
Too, too close for comfort, you know?
Bianca Biasi is someone who grew up in the Northern Beaches and ended up making a few documentaries about the area because it's also home to the quarantine station.
Yes.
Which
I thought maybe at first this was... perhaps what you were going to do.
Yeah, that does make sense. But yeah, this is very close to that area if anyone's really kind of unsure. Well, it's probably like a 10-minute drive, literally from Wakehurst Parkway, if that.
Yep.
Yeah.
If that, yeah.
So yeah, this person, Bianca, she's making documentaries about the whole place.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So she did actually make a documentary called Haunted Shores, which is mainly about the Wakehurst Parkway. She said that they went to film at Deep Creek Reserve, which is where Stephen Dempsey was murdered. The actors with her started to act really odd. She said that filming in that area was so horrible and confronting to many of the crew that most of them actually became physically ill and sensed a presence near them. A lot of the crew also vowed to never return to that location ever again.
Wow.
This is too messed up.
They were affected that badly.
Yeah. And one day Bianca and the crew visited a particular spot along the road to do a reenactment of an encounter with Kelly. The actor who was meant to play Kelly suddenly goes quiet and everyone can see that there is a large white light behind them. At one point, we were filming and we could see a glow behind her. We switched off the camera lights and we could still see it. All of a sudden, the actor who was playing Kelly got really, really cold. It was like something came over her face and she went white. She said later that it had been like all the blood had drained from the top of her scalp to her feet and she'd frozen to the spot. Ugh. I found a weird story that a person named Vicky wrote about on this location too. So I was 18 years old and my fiance and I decided to have a picnic with friends. As we drove into Deep Creek Reserve, I remember feeling a little uneasy, but my fiance had told me not to be ridiculous. We decided on a green patch of grass and started to unpack. It took only a few minutes to realise something was not right, and then we heard a noise, like a soft rustle, and somehow we realised we were not alone. It was pitch black and it seemed to have happened all of a sudden. I turned around, looked into the bush, and there was like a single small bright light that kept flashing at us. Then a line of flames about 3 meters long, which started burning along the ground out of nowhere.
Oh, what the fuck?
We froze and started screaming. It was like something evil was about to happen. I just cannot describe it. We picked up as much as we could and ran. I'm now 62 years old and I haven't forgotten, and I will never, ever drive down Wakehurst Parkway at that time again.
Wow. You don't really hear of flames.
Yeah, that one threw me off. Like,
yes.
It sounds like the little light is separate.
Yeah,
thing.
The little light as well.
Yeah.
That is...
That's interesting, isn't it?
It is interesting. Yeah.
It's not very... I mean, you do hear, like,
unique.
orbs and stuff being quite familiar with...
This sounds quite different, though. Like a light... Almost like it's, like it has...
a conscious kind of...
Conscious, yeah. Like it's animated almost, it's conscious.
But then the whole fire, I've never heard of that before.
The fire as well? What the fuck?
Another story from someone named Kath. At night, when I would drive home from work, I would always see a fog coming towards my car. Nothing. The demister, windows down, nothing would defog my windows. I would drive with my head out the window to see for what seemed like an eternity, but it was only a minute or so. At first, it would freak me out, but then I remembered Kelly and I just thought, oh, not again.
It's just Kelly.
It's a beautiful drive out there. However, it's very eerie at night. So there are honestly an endless amount of encounters on this road because it's such a popular road as well. But also there's been so many deaths as well because of the crashes. It's just crazy. But I am very curious about it. Dylan has been on that road multiple times as he's got family that used to live there. He's never had anything happen to him. But I definitely want to do a little like cheeky night drive.
Yeah, we should go out there
set up
and
like
do a thing.
GoPro on the dashboard and maybe
and see
get
if we
out
can
of the
catch.
car, have a little walk around.
Oh, creepy.
It would be fucking terrifying, but I'm like totally curious because I think maybe I have when I was younger because I have known a lot of people up there that I've gone to visit, so I probably just didn't know where I was. But
yeah, it's funny. Like I didn't actually. So now after all this, I think I have definitely been on the road because I did a lot of work out at Manly.
Oh, so you would have had to be on that road then. Yeah,
absolutely. Because what I used to when I was working in Manly, I was working for a company where I was like a bush regeneration supervisor, and I would supervise people who have disability, and we would go out to contracts all around the beaches, like Seaforth, all those places. So like I actually think I can remember being on that road.
You can check out your Google Maps history and then track it.
That's a good idea. You should definitely do that.
It sounds terrifying though at nighttime as well, because a lot of people are saying that, most roads are scary at night, but this one especially has different, no street lights. Oh, so as soon as you start hitting the bush, it's completely pitch black.
It's black, black. Oh, that blackness, that dark road. I know exactly that feeling. Or maybe not, because I'm sure this road almost has like a different feeling.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I think we're gonna have to do a little drive visit at some point.
I think so. I would love to go out there, and we should do a thing maybe for Patreon.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to think about joining Patreon, there's good incentive.
Yeah.
Maybe if we get 5 new patrons, we'll go out there.
Oh, shit, yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's doable.
Cool. So, well, I love that story. Thank you for
that was fun to do that one.
It was very interesting, but what's the word? Engrossing? Is that the like it really captured me? It's really fun.
Yeah, it definitely got me to, because that one was quite hard to kind of get a cutoff point, because there were so many stories. I was like,
so many stories.
How many can I put in here? Because how much do I tell about the murders as well? Because they're so in depth, like those stories. So
Australia is a pretty dark place for murder. Like, I know there's murderers all around the world, but Australia seems to have really fucked up murders.
Yeah, because we got all the convicts.
Got all the convicts.
I mean, we had some really fucked up people that really, like, Sydney was started off with people that were let out from prisons.
Yeah.
And they were just horrible people.
They were horrible. Yeah. So part of my family came from convict settlements. I'm sure many people in Australia did. But we were settled in a part of Queensland where if you were settled in Queensland, that's where like the worst of the worst went.
Oh, really?
It's like you were sent there if you were
couldn't be part of society kind of thing.
Yeah, you were really bad. It was like a penal colony. Like,
holy shit.
Yeah, for very bad. So it explains a lot about us.
All right.
So my story is a UFO story. I'm so excited to tell you.
Yeah.
I'm sure I would be surprised if you haven't heard of this, but I'm just fingers crossed that you haven't heard of it, because
that would always be
it's
nice.
just such a good story. So I wish just for once that I could surprise you with a UFO story that you've not heard of. So this week we're going to be looking at a very serious UFO incident that occurred on 29th of December 1980 in Dayton, Texas. And this incident involved 3 people: Betty Cash, Vicky Landrum, and Vicky's 9-year-old son, Colby Landrum.
Yep.
Do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course you fucking do. I'll get you one day, don't worry.
It's fantastic, yeah.
It's a great one.
I'm sorry. I love this story. But yeah, like I haven't, it's, I do know it, but it's been a very long time since I've actually dived into it. So
cool. Okay, it's a refresher.
Yeah. So it's good.
Awesome. Okay, well, and maybe I can tell you something
this is on my list, though.
Oh, okay. Well, it doesn't need to be now because I'm going to do it. So Dayton, it's a town in Texas that currently has a population of about 9,000. But back in 1980, when our story is set, the population was of about 5,000. So a fair bit smaller than what it is now. And it's located about 3 miles or 4.8 kilometers west of the Trinity River. Betty Cash was born in 1929 in Alabama, which would make her in her 60s when this event took place. Yeah. And Vicky Landrum was born in 1923 in Mississippi, which would mean she was also in her 60s at this time. So what happened in this town of Dayton, Texas? The way that this wild encounter began was on the night of the 29th of December, 1980, as I said. And Betty Cash was driving in her car, which was an Oldsmobile Cutlass, with Vicky Landrum and Colby, Vicky's grandson. They were just returning from dinner at a truck stop restaurant in Dayton, and it was about 9 at night, give or take. They had actually planned on playing bingo that night, which was something that they did regularly, but they had gotten their dates mixed up, so they missed it for the night and just decided to grab some dinner instead and then head home to just settle in.
I love bingo.
Oh, I fucking love bingo.
So good.
I love bingo.
So
You know, there's drag bingo
Is there?
in Penrith.
Oh,
so, like,
that would be
we should go to some
that would
drag
be
bingo.
So fun.
Oh, you know what? Even better, it's Kath and Kim drag bingo.
No way.
Yep, it's Kath and Kim. We
That
need to fucking
is so
go.
fucking good.
I know. It's perfect. Couldn't get any
Doesn't
better.
get better than that.
So it was about 18 minutes into their trip home when the group of three noticed from inside the car while they were driving a bright light hovering above some trees ahead of them. They were situated on a very isolated 2-lane road that was surrounded in dense woods. So this light was very obvious to them just due to the isolation, etc. But at first, they weren't concerned by this light. They thought it was just a light coming from some kind of plane or helicopter from the Houston Intercontinental Airport,
Right.
which was about 35 miles or 56 kilometers away. So they just gave it little notice. They continued driving down the winding roads to their destination when they noticed the light becoming larger and brighter. It started to really unnerve them because this light looked very different from the ones that they had experienced from the planes that would come from the airport.
Okay.
Betty said of the light, quote, "We kept watching it. We couldn't figure out what it was, not ever dreaming we were going to run dead into it. But all of a sudden, when we got out onto this country road, it just sat down almost level with the treetops. It had lit up the entire sky."
Fuck that.
So it kind of turned into like this inconspicuous light, and it just got closer, brighter, and then it was bam, right there in front of them. So by this point, the light was incredibly bright and right in front of them. It was so close that they could all see the light was coming from a huge diamond-shaped object that looked like it had the top and bottom points cut off. They said that they also saw this diamond-shaped craft expelling a huge amount of flames from the base, which was producing an incredible amount of heat that they
Wow.
could feel even from where they were still inside the car.
Oh, shit.
So these flames were kind of coming out of where the point
Should've
looked like it had been cut off. Yeah, it should have been.
Okay.
Exactly. So the heat was so intense that it made it impossible for them to keep driving. And Vicky was also telling Betty to stop the car because she was scared that if they got any closer, the group and the car would have become burnt.
Oh my God.
It was that hot.
Fuck.
So Vicky was actually a born-again Christian, and she interpreted what she was seeing as a sign. It was a sign from Jesus and God, a second coming of Christ. Vicky's grandson, Colby, was absolutely terrified by this point, by what was happening. Understandably, he was just screaming and crying.
Yeah, that would be me.
Yeah, same.
Full-grown adult
fucking-
having an actual tantrum. Like,
you couldn't do anything else.
I don't
Just
even know.
breaking down, you know. And so, yeah, Vicky tried to comfort him by saying, "That's Jesus. He will not hurt us." Betty said that at this point, she was extremely anxious and scared and considered turning the car around. but she realized that the road they were on was too narrow to successfully maneuver the car around, and that it would probably get stuck on the dirt shoulders, which were mucky and muddy from previous rains that they had. Yeah, you're just stuck in front of it. I mean, she could have reversed, but it's a bit risky, I guess. You can't just fucking leg it, you know. So instead, Betty and Vicky decided to get out of the car to see what was in front of them. But Colby was so distraught and upset still in the car that Vicky decided to stay with him to try and calm him down. So it just ended up being Betty outside of the car. Very fucking brave for an old woman in her 60s, you know? A bingo lady.
Yeah.
Just facing this object
I'll
straight
take care
on.
of this.
Oh, whack it with your handbag. Betty said that when she was outside the car and looking at this object, she didn't know whether to stay there and watch or run or get back into the car. She said that she was absolutely mesmerized by what she was looking at, having trouble breaking her gaze, but she was also terrified at the same time. Betty said of the object, quote, "It was intensely bright and a dull metallic silver. It was shaped like a huge upright diamond, about the size of the Dayton water tower, with its top and bottom cut off, so they were flat instead of pointed."
That's pretty big. Like water towers are massive.
Oh, it's fucking huge.
That's fucking
it's quite
decent.
big.
Wow.
Yep. Exactly. She said small blue lights ringed the center, and periodically, over the next few minutes, flames shot out of the bottom, flaring outward, creating the effect of a large cone. Every time the fire dissipated, the object floated a few feet downwards towards the road. But when the flames blasted out again, the object rose about the same distance. So that was a direct quote from her. And I did try to find a photo of the Dayton water tower, but I couldn't find exactly which tower she was referencing, as a few came up, but all the towers I did find are very large, with a kind of big dome shape on top of a long pillar.
Yeah. If
So
it's
they're
like
all
the
quite big.
Dayton water tower, it's like that is providing, that's the water for the town. So it's
the
a
town.
big tower.
Huge, very huge, yeah. So the heat coming from this diamond-shaped object got so hot that Betty had to retreat back to the car, and she actually had to use her coat to be able to use the door handle to get back inside. Otherwise, she would have just burnt her hand. Very, very hot. Everything is just heating up. At one point, after she was in the car, she put her hand on the vinyl dashboard and claimed that the car had heated so much that she had left a handprint in the vinyl that had stayed in the vinyl for weeks after the event.
Whoa.
Yeah, so everything is just like softened and kind of burning, you know. And this handprint was actually used by investigators later on to prove as a clue to their experience.
Good to know. Yeah.
Very good to know, yeah. And that's going to be a bit more relevant down the track as well as to why there were investigations into this. But the object then started to rise up into the air once again to about the height of the treetops. And then it started to rise higher and higher into the sky. At the same time as this, the group witnessed between 23 to 26 Chinook helicopters approach and then circle the diamond object, surrounding it in a very tight formation.
Fuck.
Yes, which is important because if anyone isn't sure what a Chinook helicopter is, it's a larger, kind of longer helicopter with double blades. It's that Chinook. It's the helicopter that has like those two blades going at one time.
Huge,
and
heavy,
big
duty
helicopter. Oh yeah.
helicopters, yeah.
And these helicopters, they are only used by the military all around the world. So you can't use a Chinook if you're not in the military. And I've been on a Chinook because my brother is in the army.
You've been on one?
And I've been on one, and they are fucking big and hardcore. Like,
whoa.
Yeah. No joke.
And wait, there was like 26 of them?
Between 23 to 26.
Yes.
Which is a lot.
Crazy. Even just seeing one of those in the air, you'd be like, oh, shit is going down. Like, what is that there for?
But that many of them, because they're so large and they take up a lot of space.
They do,
You know, so yeah, it's definitely something to think about, I think. Now, the road was now clear from the mysterious diamond object. Betty, Vicky, and Colby were able to drive on and continue home, just totally in a state of shock and confusion, basically. Betty said that even as they were driving, they were able to see the light from the diamond in the distance, still being pursued by the helicopters. And from the very first sighting of the object to the moment it disappeared from in front of them, the time frame was about 20 minutes, which I don't feel like is that long. So much happened in that time, you know.
Yeah.
Apparently there were 2 other witnesses who saw the group of Chinook helicopters, and these 2 witnesses were actually a detective of the Dayton police force named Lamar Walker, as well as his wife, who was the other witness. They saw these helicopters at the same time and in the same location as Betty, Vicky, and Colby did, but they said they never saw the diamond-shaped
that's interesting.
object. Very interesting.
Wow. Okay, that's a bit weird.
It's a bit strange, yeah. So apparently after witnessing the diamond object and the helicopters, and they were able to get out of there, Betty drove the Landrums home, and then she took herself home. Though they hadn't fully escaped the oppression of what they had experienced earlier that night. All 3 people, so little Colby included, experienced very weird and similar symptoms that night, though the effects were definitely more severe for Betty Cash. All 3 experienced nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, generalized weakness, a burning sensation in their eyes, and they all felt like they were experiencing what they said what was similar to sunburn on their skin. Over the next few days, Betty's symptoms got worse and worse, receiving many large and small blisters all over her skin, which fucking sucks.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh my God.
That's painful.
Oh, that would be so painful. Fuck.
Yeah. It got to a point where she was actually taken to emergency on January 3rd, 1980. So that's 4 days after the sighting. Yeah. Betty was so sick that she couldn't walk. Her hair was falling out and she was losing large patches of her skin.
Oh, what?
Yep. The doctors tried to treat her, but her condition really just didn't improve, and she was released from the hospital after 12 days.
12 days? That's a very long time.
It's a long time, but I also feel like if you're losing your skin, you shouldn't be released from hospital.
Yeah, like, oh, you're not losing skin anymore, but it's like you have...
Yeah,
what?
but you're still really sick.
That's so gross and weird.
I guess how long do you keep someone in a hospital when you don't know what's going on with them? You can't just keep them there forever, I guess.
Yeah.
So after getting back home and resting, nothing really got better for Betty and her health. So she returned back to the hospital after 15 days of first being released. Betty said of her symptoms and hospital admission, quote, "My lips were swollen, my ears were swollen about 3 times. Well, in fact, my entire body. My family didn't recognize me. When they came to the hospital, they told them what room I was in. They said had they not known for sure that it was me, they wouldn't have known me.
No way. Ears being swollen.
Ears. She said her ears were swollen, her lips were swollen, her whole body was just swollen. Yeah, I definitely feel for her. The Landrums, Vicky and Colby, did also continue to have ongoing symptoms, but nowhere near on the scale as Betty did. They both continued to suffer from ongoing weakness, skin sores, and hair loss. The blisters that Vicky experienced would become so large and sore that most of them turned into scars. And at one point, she even lost a fingernail.
Ew.
Ew, fucking
no.
ew. Oh my God, they're like mutants.
Yeah, it's like fucking radiation burn mutant person.
Exactly.
This is crazy. I mean, you hear this so often with people that have very close exposure to UFOs. Sunburn and all that sort of stuff.
Blisters,
so, I mean, this is
loss.
Intense. This is probably the worst one I've
I mean, they were very close to it, and they were affected by heat, like the heat coming out of it, which, I mean, could be explained by the flames, but you just don't know, I guess, you know? So, yeah, both of the Landrums, they both suffered from almost constant debilitating nausea as well.
Ugh.
But Betty, she had many tests run on her to try and figure out what the hell was going on with her and how to stop it. She claimed that she spent upwards of $10,000 US on seeking answers and treatment, but to no avail. Nobody could figure out why she was so sick. And even though pretty much all the tests came back inconclusive, there was one radiologist who examined Betty and Vicky that said, quote, "We have strong evidence that these patients have suffered secondary damage from ionizing radiation. It is also possible that there was an infrared component as well." And this would absolutely line up with the victims' symptoms that they were experiencing, which really did resemble quite closely to radiation sickness. Apparently, to detect any kind of radiation contamination caused by ionizing radiation, there has to be an extremely high concentration to be able to be measurable. So this is kind of like a point of conflict, is that the area was tested for radiation and nothing clicked on the meter, but ionizing radiation is generally very hard to detect, but it can make you sick.
Okay.
So for it to be detectable, it has to be like super, 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 super high amounts. So it is possible that they were affected by ionizing radiation without it being detectable. So with Betty so unwell and Vicky also suffering in her own way, they decided on a different route to seek answers. They decided to contact 2 US senators, Lloyd Benson and John Tower, to ask them for advice. And the 2 men suggested that they contact Bergstrom Air Force Base to file a complaint. And this is an Air Force base also located in Texas, about 3 hours from Dayton. So I'm presuming that this is maybe the closest air base to Dayton, just based on the fact that this is where Betty and Vicky were led to. Like, I can't imagine there'd be any other reason as to why they would be sent to Bergstrom unless it was the closest base.
I think that too. Yeah, it would have to be.
They decided to visit the base in person, and when they got there, they were interviewed at length about the whole event, what they had witnessed and also their lingering health problems.
Okay.
They were advised by the people at the base to hire some lawyers and seek compensation for the damages they had received, which isn't exactly...
What?
Well, exactly. This is not really what they wanted to hear. They were more just looking for answers for what they experienced, as to lead them in the right direction on how to start recovering from their symptoms. They weren't out for compensation. They just wanted to know how to get better. And like, who do you...
who am I complaining to? Who am I... Who's responsible for this? Like, what?
Yes, exactly. So, but, you know, this is what they did. They eventually hired a lawyer named Peter Gersten, and their case made it to court.
Yeah.
Gersten actually took on their case pro bono.
Nice.
And Gersten, Cash, and Landrum decided they were going to sue the US federal government.
Hey.
There we go. For $20 million, $20 million US dollars, which is a lot of money, especially in the 80s as well.
Now that's, I don't even know.
It's fucking a lot.
I never know.
So I should have done the little calculation thing, but it's a lot of money.
A lot.
So a piece of evidence that was used in the case was actually the handprint that Betty made in the vinyl dashboard of her car that night of the encounter, as well as testimonies from NASA, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Army. These were all given during the court proceedings in favour of Betty and Vicky, which is so bizarre. Like, they're on her side.
Yeah, because they're probably thinking, she's got the fucking evidence. It's all here. Like, we're going to have to be on her side. We're going to be on the right side of history here.
Totally. Like, yeah, exactly. Like, what else can they do? Oh, yeah. It's a very strange case. It's almost, like, unheard of, I guess. It
totally is unheard of.
To be backed by NASA and all the government services, So this case went on for several years, but eventually in 1986, it was dismissed by a US District Court judge due to the fact it couldn't be proven that the helicopters that they saw on the night were associated with the US federal government, as well as the fact that certain military officials denied that they have any kind of diamond-shaped craft in their possession, and they denied having any kind of craft that is UFO-shaped, as they said, in their possession as well. I guess Betty and Vicky couldn't prove that they saw the diamond shape.
That's hard.
So they're just like, oh, we didn't fucking, what are you talking about? Like,
plus the other witnesses didn't see it either. They saw
the helicopters only. So this case is so amazing because it went as far as having a years-long court case that involved lawyers, the Navy, the Army, NASA, etc. Also because the group's health was so affected by what they think was the object that they saw.
Gotta be.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
Betty, and it happened in that same night.
Yeah.
Like that night they got sick.
That's what happened.
There is no other reason for them to get so sick, you know. So Betty Cash, she actually passed away in 1998 at the age of 69 from breast cancer.
Oh.
And before she passed away, she always claimed that she thought her cancer was an effect of the craft that they experienced that night. I couldn't exactly find out how Vicky Landrum died, but we do know that she passed away in 2007, only 7 days before her 84th birthday. So I tried my hardest to find some kind of theories debunking this case, and I literally cannot find anything, which is wild for such a big and well-known case.
Yeah.
I have seen people write about how hard it is to debunk this case because of the health issues that the group had after the encounter, as well as other pieces of evidence that were brought forward. And Betty herself claimed that she didn't actually think the diamond object that they witnessed was a UFO.
Yeah, that's right.
Despite many others thinking this was it was. And there are some people who claim that the type of sickness that the group acquired from that night is actually more closely related to what you would see from chemical contamination as opposed to radiation contamination. So even though this isn't debunking, it is a different aspect to consider, and it's kind of split down the middle of people thinking this is a UFO and people thinking this is some kind of experimental government object / craft.
Yeah.
Because UFOs generally you don't see flames.
That's what I was
heat.
thinking. You don't see flames. That's not really something you would associate with a UFO.
No. And if their sickness is more similar to something like chemical exposure or chemical contamination, this would kind of align with that as well.
Yeah, I think it's very half with these incidents. Like, you can really tie it, go the whole route. Like, I think it's just like a government experiment. Like, it could totally be one of those. And then you see some fucking other sort of weird shit where it's like, that cannot be anything from this earth. Like,
UFO,
that's
straight UFO.
But yeah, that one
this
sounds
seems
weird.
This seems too clunky and messy, you know, to be a UFO. I think it's So the interview with Betty from the army base is available online to read through.
Wow.
Like, the transcript is available to read through, and there's actually a lot of information online to look at, like official information, and that's all very interesting to see. And Betty, Vicky and Colby, they all appeared on various shows such as America Undercover and Unsolved Mysteries, talking about what happened with them. They were always very vocal about their experience and wanting justice and truth for what happened to them. So there is a lot of media out there that, I guess, validates their case, validates that they did see what they saw, even though that doesn't explain what it was. It does provide a lot of context and that kind of thing. So that's the story of
that's
the
fascinating.
Strange diamond shaped thing in the sky.
I didn't really know too much about
story.
the injuries that they had. Like, I just knew about what they saw. So that was really awesome to hear. But it's awesome. Like in such a nice package. Like, you've got the detailed explanation of what they saw. There wasn't really any like time loss. They kind of talk about getting out of the car, staying in the car, they can see it, then the after effects of seeing the helicopters, then days go by. Like, it's I love those ones. Yeah, how there's just a lot that happens. It's not just I saw this and then that was it.
And that's it. Well, this is what I really like about this, is that a huge chunk of this story is about like the symptoms that they had and them just being so unwell and so suddenly in such direct consecutive time. Yeah. Like, after it
has to be related to sighting. That. Like, and all three of them to be affected by that on that night, and then for Betty to have the stronger one when she was actually a lot closer. She was out of the car. They all got symptoms at the same time, or very similar symptoms. The handprint too? Are there photos of the handprint?
I don't know. I haven't actually looked for it.
That's crazy.
That would be fantastic if there is a photo of that.
That's so cool to think that left a handprint.
And these were like grandmothers, these were grandmothers who played bingo.
Thought it was Jesus in a craft.
Exactly. Religious, conservative, and they just stuck by their story until, at least Betty and Vicky passed away. Yeah. Going as far as being on TV shows and being like, this is what happened.
Colby's still alive.
Not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I couldn't find that out.
That is Such a good story. It's such a great
good story.
One. Yeah.
And Colby actually was on the same TV shows as well. So yeah, he's also vocal about everything that happened.
Awesome.
But yeah, two awesome ones.
Yep. Again, we've done it.
Every
Amazing.
time. Fucking every time. You can't beat us.
You really can't. We're just too fucking good, eh?
Too fucking good. Well, yeah, if you're wanting to reach out to us, again, just please send us a message, send us an email. We would love so much to just chat with you, hear your stories. If you want to support us, Patreon is there, or just give us a rating, review, whatever.
Yeah. It's always good just to remember, like, we would love to do another listener stories episode. So if you got a longer story, don't be afraid to send them through. You know, shorter or longer, we're happy with either.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, we've got the content that will provide for that, so we will accept all of it. But yeah, it was good to have you guys listening again this week, and yeah, we'll speak to you next week.
Speak to you then. Bye bye. This episode of Spooky Mountain was created and recorded on land of the original custodians, the Gundungurra and Bidjigal people. We pay respects to the past, present, and emerging mob. My name is Jordi, and I'm a proud Gunya woman. Thank you for listening.